We started in the book of Nehemiah, and we discussed that Nehemiah in chapter 1 and all of the book. I think all of the chapter hinges on chapter 1. In chapter 1, Nehemiah said a prayer when he heard about the condition of Jerusalem. He couldn't bear it. So he prayed and fasted and confessed. All of this happens in chapter 1. And he said and prayed, God, give your servant success. This determined what's going to happen in the subsequent chapters. Nehemiah started his journey to Jerusalem from Babylon, which probably took him about 4 months, going through different weather conditions and dangers. 4 months to go to Jerusalem. Let's imagine that he arrived to the airport of Jerusalem. Imagine who's going to receive him. When he arrived to Jerusalem, it says in Nehemiah 2:10, when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official heard about this, they were very disturbed that someone had come. Why would they be disturbed? Nehemiah that's the first time they see Nehemiah. But you will see the name of Tobiah in all of the book. And he has animosity towards Nehemiah the whole time. Why? Because he understood that Tobiah is seeking the good of Israel. What would make Tobiah upset about that? When the Israelites were captured and taken to Babylon, Jerusalem was an open door for him. He was able to do whatever he pleases. So now Nehemiah becomes a threat to Tobiah's power. Remember that before Nehemiah, there were 2 other people before him, Ezra and Zerubbabel, and both of them built something new. One built the temple, and one built the altar. And because, all of are important, but they're missing the wall around Jerusalem. So once Nehemiah builds a wall, now Tobiah and Sanballat won't have the same access to Jerusalem. So from the day Nehemiah entered Jerusalem, Sanballat and Tobiah are trying to figure ways out to stop Nehemiah's project. Tobiah and Sanballat both received Nehemiah, but that did not deter Nehemiah from keeping his project alive. He did not give up despite the opposition that he's going to face right at the get-go. In Nehemiah 2, in a later verse, Sanballat continues to monitor the situation. Up until this point, he still doesn't know what Nehemiah is doing. All what he knows is from what he hears. He doesn't know yet what exactly he's going to do. It says, when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official and Geshem the Arab heard about it, so the triplets, they started by what? Mocking. It says they mocked and ridiculed us. First, it says that they were holding a grudge, and now they turned their technique and strategy to mocking and ridiculing. What is it that you're doing? They ridiculed. This is one of the strategies that our enemy uses, is to ridicule and belittle us. They asked, "Are you rebelling against the king?" They didn't know that the king already had known about this, but they're trying to incriminate him. They're trying to scare him off. But Nehemiah was not scared. Nehemiah was not surprised by this, but immediately he responded to them, and he said quite clearly, I am not here by myself. I am not here with my own authority. Nehemiah understood very well that he was commissioned by God himself to come and undertake this big project. He knew that success was guaranteed by God. In chapter 4, verse 1, it says, when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became angry and greatly incensed. So what did Sanballat hear this time? He heard that they started the work. So now things are getting serious for Sanballat. It's a real threat to him. So now he started to get really angry and was incensed. So the first time he was mocking them and ridiculed them. But now he's getting upset. And it says, in the presence of his associates and the army of Samaria, he said, "What are those feeble Jews doing?" Remember that the people who are working on the wall were just laymen. They were not soldiers. They never fought before. But Sanballat was not that. Sanballat came with an actual army and actual soldiers. There is no way to compare. So it says, what are those feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifices? Can they actually build out of rubble? Can they bring stones back to life from those heaps of rubble, burned as they are? And Tobiah the Ammonite, who was at his side, continued to cheer for Sanballat and said, "What are they building? Even a fox climbing up on it would break down their wall stones." They are trying to discourage Nehemiah. Why would you bother Nehemiah? What would you think you're doing? But forget it, Nehemiah. Don't even try to start. The wall is never going to be built in any proper way. But let's see how Nehemiah responded to this attack. We saw how Nehemiah started with a prayer, and we'll see how he is now also praying again. He's always in prayer, and that was his secret of success. And he prayed, "Hear, O Lord." But in verse 7, when he heard that Nehemiah had about half of the wall done, he heard again. And he's monitoring the situation. And the more I hear that you're working more, I'm getting more angry, and I'm going to make people stand up against Nehemiah. So we saw how there were the triplets of them, Sanballat, Tobiah, and the Arab leader. Now he's even recruiting more. So we have Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arab, the Ammonites from the east, and the people of Ashdod. From all directions, he was surrounded. Nehemiah was surrounded by people that Sanballat recruited from all directions to stand up against Nehemiah's project, because they heard that the repairs to Jerusalem walls was being rebuilt and the gaps were being filled. So there was no place for Sanballat and the others to sneak in or have that influence and power. So when we say half the wall, is not half in the circumference, but just half of the height. So it was entirely complete all around. It's just not full height. Now it's not just a talk or feeling angry. Now Sanballat and his people, the allies, are actually getting ready to wage a war against him. But, well, Nehemiah was not a man of war. That's not his job or calling. But Nehemiah figured it out quickly, that his challenge is not just the wall, it's now going in an actual war against a lot of people. When you do the work of the Lord, the challenges are going to be way more than just doing the actual work. There will be a lot of battles waged against you from the enemy. It is not going to be an easy road. If you think it is going to be an easy road because you left behind the kingdom of the darkness, you're mistaken. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be an open road. The enemy is even going to fight more against you when he sees someone is focused towards the work of the Lord. Once the enemy sees a believer heading towards the city of God, he is going to try everything to stop and deter them. Just like we see in Nehemiah's story. In verse 9, Nehemiah kept doing what he does every time, which is prayer. My friends, there's a meeting. It's a prayer meeting. My friends, Jesus himself was teaching, was healing people during the day, but before he does anything, he was always praying. I'm trying to encourage you. Don't slumber, don't fall asleep. Don't let the prayer die in your spiritual life. What made Nehemiah strong was not by standing and preaching on the pulpit, but it was because of his prayers on his knees. To have victory in our spiritual wars, we need prayer. So it says, but we pray to our God and posted a guard day and night to meet this threat. So when we pray, we still have to work. So we don't just pray and sit back, but we pray and we depend on God. We let him take control, but it's not an invitation to just lay back and do nothing. Nehemiah figured out how the covenant works. He understood it even before the New Testament was revealed. He figured that yes, we trust God, but we also need to work for His kingdom. So when do we pray? Do we pray just on occasions? No, we pray, as they said, day and night. Why day and night? Because Nehemiah was working day and night, and with the work going day and night, he needs to pray day and night. In verse 15, let's move on from 15. Let's actually go to 17. In that verse, it talks about dividing the people who work into two groups. One group holding the armor and the other group actually doing the labor work. But it's clear that he understood the danger he is facing and started to equip people to keep guard and defend the wall. It says, who were building the wall, those who carried materials and did their work with one hand and held a weapon in the other. So, in one hand, they're working, and the other hand held the weapon. They were doing the two things. I was enlisted in the Egyptian army, and I forgot, and I was surprised to find that the logo was the same verse in Nehemiah. It was taken from there. Their logo, the Egyptian army logo, was with one hand we built, and with the other hand we carry our weapon. And I'm trying to figure out, where did they get this from? That's the logo of the Egyptian army. We build and defend our country. That was the same motto that Nehemiah used in his project. It's not just I'm going to fight and sleep or build and sleep, but the two together, fight and build. So when you start building, the enemy will start fighting against you, but we still do the two, to fight and to build. In verse 20, it says that our God will fight for us. In verse 21, I don't know why every time when I read the Bible, I encounter that idea of accountability and grace. Some groups will just focus on works or accountability, and the other side will focus on grace. Both extremes are wrong. Nehemiah figured out that yes, our Lord will defend us, but it doesn't mean that we sleep and abandon our posts. But remember the motto that that yes, our God will fight for us, but we continue to work. Because it says, so we continued the work with half the men holding the spears from the first light of dawn till the stars came out. It is to the point where every man and his helper and stays with their armor on, even when they drink. They were working day and night. They had no time to even put down their armor to go and have a drink. They had no time for that. If you are in the army and at mid-time you missed your shift, and if someone notices that someone notices that you fell asleep on duty, you can get imprisoned. Why? Because you're risking the lives of all of your unit. At any point, the enemy could attack, and before having enough warning. So this is a way to protect your army and your unit. So it is serious to fall asleep. In Nehemiah's days, this is an actual concrete fight. It's an actual war. But in the New Testament, our wars are not physical. Our war is in the New Testament is actually spiritual. So the story of Nehemiah can be taken as an analogy to what we face now in the New Testament. I understand the New Testament in the light of the Old Testament. But if you understand that there's something called a spiritual warfare, let's say if you go into a war, but let's assume you're fighting, and do you just randomly attack, or do you target where the enemy is, and you even pick strategic points to hit and strike? The enemy does not randomly strike. But the problem is we as a human being, we lack the skill to deal with our enemy. If you are in the army, they teach you everything about your enemy, their culture, their feasts, where do they go, their schedule and routines. There are many people who underestimate our enemy. The Bible warns us not to underestimate the skill of Satan. And the Bible is trying to teach us how to equip ourselves against the attacks of Satan. There is a book called Know Your Enemy. When you know your enemy, you know how to defend yourself against your enemy. This is why the Apostle Paul is trying to teach us how our enemy fights and how to defend ourselves. But before I read in Ephesians 6, I want to go to Ephesians 2 to tell you who our enemies are. There are 3 enemies in Ephesians 2 that we are told about. It says, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world and of the ruler of the kingdom of the air and the spirit. So there are 3 enemies, the worries of the world, the ruler of the kingdom, and the spirit who is in work. And so we have our flesh, and this is working against us. Now we're going to focus on our enemy, who is Satan. And in the story of Nehemiah, Sanballat is an analogy of Satan, who is trying to stand against the renovation of the church. In Ephesians 6, Apostle Paul says to put on the armor of God, the complete armor of God. If Apostle Paul is telling us to wear the complete armor, It's a warning against picking and choosing what armor we pick. We need to put on the whole armor of God. And this has to be put on the whole time we are alive. Just like Nehemiah never put down his armor, it's the same thing for us in the New Testament. Remember that Nehemiah always had his weapon on one hand and he was building with the other hand, and that's the same attitude that we should have in the New Testament. Our enemy is waiting for us to just put down the weapon to strike. You can fall asleep, you can slumber, but our enemy does not fall asleep or slumber. He will attack. It says Paul is the one who's defining the nature of spiritual warfare. My struggle is not against my human enemies, not my wife, not my pastor, not my boss at work. But Paul says, no, these are not your real enemies. Those are maybe Satan is moving those people in your life. It could be the case. Yes, don't get upset. It could be the case that Satan is moving people. But the real struggle is in the spiritual realm. Remember that we are entering the kingdom of light. And remember that the kingdom of light has always been in a struggle with the kingdom against the kingdom of darkness and Satan. And the battlefield is us. We are the battlefield of the struggle between light and darkness. Satan cannot defeat God, but he can try and target and attack God through attacking the human being. You know that he started that exactly in the Garden of Eden. He's trying to hurt God, but he knows he cannot hurt God directly, so he's hurting his own creature that he knows God loves. So the main battle is against God and between God and Satan, but the humans. That's why it says, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, and against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. So it talks about spiritual forces of evil. We can't see it. So how do we target it? It's in the. So for that, we should be equipping ourselves with the armor of God. So I'm gonna discuss 2 points in the armor of God. In verse 14, it says, "Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate, and with your feet fitted with readiness that come from the gospel of peace." So those are the 2 points I want to talk about. Do you know where Paul got this from? Paul is not innovating here. Paul has his eyes on Exodus 12. Let's go to Exodus 12. It's a long story in Exodus 12. We won't be able to cover all of it, but we will talk about a part of it. Remember that the people of God were enslaved for about 400 years. They were really oppressed. They were working hard. They were enslaved. And after 400 years, God said, "This is my last judgment on the Egyptians. Get a sheep. You go into your house, you get your sheep, you slaughter your sheep, take his blood and put it on the doorposts. Then you shut the clothes, and then you do not leave your house. You do not leave your house. And then eat from the lamb. you eat it in a hurry. You have your belt around you, and you have your shoes on your feet, because you're going to leave. Yeah, we're going to leave. I'm eating and drinking and closing the door, and I'm going to leave. When you eat from the lamb, and when you have the blood of the lamb, and you're eating it in a hurry after you had a long day of labor. This is going to be the last day of labor for Pharaoh. And is that serious? And God says, yes, it's for real. Today is the last day. So take the lamb and slaughter the lamb. Put the blood on the doorpost. Close the door and eat. I will see the blood and pass over. That's my job. I'm going to pass over. I'm going to come in midnight. You're going to hear the screaming of the Egyptians. And once you hear it, you leave. You don't look behind, you leave. So that's why I'm telling you to get ready. Because just wait to leave. And that's exactly what happened. But look how God is leading the people outside of Egypt. I read this chapter for 50 times, but this verse came in a very different way to me. In verse 14, it says, "The Lord will fight for you, and you need only to be still." This is the first time we see that the Lord will fight. This is the first time we see that the Lord is fighting for someone. And you need to be still. So remember, the people were laboring their whole life, and then now they're going to leave. Let me just have a rest. No, there was no time for that. They need to leave in a hurry. They didn't get a rest. There was no break from the day labors. And then verse 19, it says how they left. Then the angel of God, who had been traveling in front of who? Let's read it. Let's read it from the next verse. It was coming, we say that the angel of the Lord was coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. What armies? Well, I understand the army of Egypt. What about the other army? The army of Israel? So after they eat the Passover lamb, they became an army? When did they get a chance to become a fighter? My beloved, the day you're covered in blood, the day you eat from the lamb, you are a new creation. You become a soldier. You become enlisted in the Lord's army. You're not leaving the kingdom of darkness as a slave. You're leaving the kingdom of darkness as a soldier. They become God's name is man of war. This is the first time I pay attention to this. He's not just a great doctor. He's not just a great teacher. He's not just a great shepherd. He's also a man of war. And this was clear from the days of Exodus. And when did this come to its peak point? When God and Satan. We see it in Luke 11. It talks about Jesus himself is talking in Luke 11. So let's go and see what he says. Jesus was accused that he was Beelzebul, and he was being attacked by the religious leaders. And so he responded to them. He said, "When a strong man, fully armed, guards his own house, his possessions are safe. What is he talking about? He's talking about Satan. He says he was responding to the accusation. He says that Satan was strong, and now the second property that Satan has is he is armed. He's armed to keep the people that he's enslaving. But when God comes in the battle, everything changes. What happens? But when someone stronger attacks and overpowers him, Satan is not weak. Jesus is clear. Satan is strong. But God is even stronger. And so he's able to overpower him. And does what? He overpowers him. If I look overpowers in the original language in Greek, it means conquer. So it means someone entered into a war and he was victorious. It is a technical term to refer to victory specifically to a war situation. You know, Satan doesn't play, and he has a complete set of armor. And does the believer then have a mediocre set of armor? No, do you know what Satan's complete armor is? The first one is lies. And how do you overcome lies? By the belt of truth. You know the truth, and the truth will set you free from every lie. Satan is not coming to waste time. He's not having a picnic here on earth. He's coming to kill. Satan is coming to kill. And if you're sleeping, Satan is going to kill. He's not coming to play with you. He's not having fun. So the Lord will come and take and overpower Satan. And when did this happen? In the battle of the cross. In second chapter of Colossians, it talks about Jesus winning and stripping the authorities of evil. And stripping means he removed all their authority. He removed all their powers, all their strength. He stripped them all power. Where did this happen? It wasn't in his birth. It wasn't in the desert. Not in the Transfiguration. No, it wasn't in the lake it wasn't in the lake, but it happened. It happened on the cross, and he was victorious. What does victorious mean? It refers to someone entering a battle and finishing the battle as a victorious soldier. We don't know what happened in those 3 hours of darkness on the cross, but I don't know exactly what happened. But we know that Satan, probably looking from earth, thinking that he finished Jesus on the cross and in the tomb, he wasn't expecting that Jesus would rise again. Jesus on the cross didn't die on his own and didn't rise on his own. The Bible says that we died with him and we were raised with him. So if we go to Corinthians, it talks about how we should be thankful to God who is leading us in victory. What does that mean, leading us in victory? You know that the Roman armies, They, for example, would conquer a country or a city, and they come back as a group, and they have crowns on top of and they're celebrating. Jesus does not lead us in shame. He does not lead us in weakness and defeat. No, he is leading us in victory. And Jesus is ahead of us, and we're just following him. I am not the one who's winning. I'm not the one who's conquering. I am just following Jesus. I'm hiding in Jesus. I'm not doing that on my own, as if God didn't do anything. That's not true. Without Jesus, without God, you are doomed. Jesus is leading us in victory. Victory is not just an occasional thing. It says it's every time, all the time. But what if I'm defeated or feel defeated? God Himself did not make any of us to be defeated, but as victorious and conquerors. Where do we find that truth? We find it in the book of Revelation. Let's go in Revelation before I end our sermon in Nehemiah. In the book of Revelation, we have John, the beloved John, who rested on Jesus' chest. In the first chapter, he couldn't bear looking at Jesus. Why? That's his friend. Wasn't that his friend? Wasn't that his most beloved disciple? When the disciples wanted to find out something, they would tell John to go ask Jesus. But in chapter 1 in Revelation, the scene was completely different. He saw Jesus not in the same way as he saw him in earthly life, but he saw Jesus, and out of Jesus there was a sword coming out, and that's the sword of truth. He was holding the 7 churches, and he saw a double-edged sword coming out of his mouth. Remember the armor of God? It's the belt of truth. So it was the first time for John to see Jesus as a warrior. In his earthly life, Jesus was humiliated, he was beaten, he was hit, he was tormented and tortured, and he never said a word. But this is only temporary. It was until his death. But after that, and after his resurrection, it's a totally different story. After resurrection, becomes a warrior, a man of war. He, out of his mouth, the double-edged sword comes out. And what does he do with that double-edged sword? Remember that one of the weapons is for the believer is the sword of the Spirit. It is what we have in the Bible. It's the Word of God. It says that the Word of God is like a double-edged sword. It shows us where our sin is. It puts the light on what might be a hidden sin in our life. But after this vision, he gave John 7 messages to the 7 churches. So let's say, to the angel of the church in Ephesus write, who conquers, he will eat from the tree of life. Second one, the angel of Smyrna, defeat death. And then third is Pergam, and he will eat from the manna. Fourth, in Thyatira, who conquers is going to have authority over nations. So now we have 4. How many? No, we haven't finished. 5, to the Sardis, who conquers is going to have white clothes on. In Philadelphia, who conquers will be a pillar in the temple of God. 7, in Laodicea, he who is victorious is going to share the throne with Jesus. Do you see the pattern? Right. Whoever conquers or whoever is victorious. Do you see the pattern? I'll discuss one of them. Who is victorious, I'll give him to sit with me in my throne. Paul says, whoever we were raised and we were seated in the heavens. But let's see the last part of Revelation. It says, who is victorious in chapter 21, verse 7, those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. Who's writing this? John is writing. But John says in the Gospel of John that whoever believes will be given authority to be the children of God. When? When they believed. Don't think you're going to believe and then fall asleep. When you believe, you actually start a spiritual warfare. It does not happen in the material world. It does not happen in the physical world. It happens in the spiritual realm, in the heavens. You became part of God's army, just like the army of Israel. You are part of his victorious army, and it happens all the time. But the point is at the end. What happens? Someone says, I believed, and then I went out and I traveled, and now what do? I'm earning my bread. Well, welcome, I guess. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible said once you're born, the second birth, from that second birth until you die, you're going to live as a conqueror, which means you're always in a war. There are a lot of people who claim that they are born again Christians. They're just sitting on the benches, but they don't do anything. They just are, and whenever they hear something they don't like, they just leave. But when you stand before the Lord Jesus, let me read from Revelation chapter 12. It's a good place to end this in chapter 12. In chapter 12, it talks about a war that is happening between an angel and the dragon. It says, then I heard the Lord voice, now we have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God. Well, remember that the enemy lost his power in the cross, but he's still trying. He's trying to take as many people with him as he can. But remember that it says they triumphed over him. Who triumphed? If I'm speaking logically, it would be the angel. But they here does not refer to the angel in chapter 12, but it speaks of who overcame him by the blood of the Lamb. Who? It's whoever was protected and covered by the blood of the Lamb. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. See, It's a referring word. It's a word refers to the sword of truth and God's word until the last part of his life. Either one give up or die without giving up. And Satan is going to escalate his struggles to get us to that point. Either you give up and die, or you fight until you die. I thought before that death is a defeat, but later I discovered that death is not defeat. That's exactly what happened in the cross. It may seem that Jesus was defeated on the cross because he was killed, but as a matter of fact, Jesus was raised, and that's how he became victorious. So even those the believers were martyred and they died. That's not their defeat, because they are going to be raised. If I go back to Nehemiah 4, I'll take one more verse and then I'll finish the sermon because we're out of time. In verse 14, Nehemiah was talking. He said, "After I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles and the officials and the rest of the people," what did he say? Let's read. "Do not be afraid of them." Okay, let's stop there. They're going into a war. This is serious stuff. What is he trying to do? He's trying to warn them that the enemy is trying to stop you, is trying to scare you. Now the enemy escalated his tactics. Yes, we could feel scared. That's what should happen, but we should not be scared. Why? Not because of our strength, but because of who is with us. Before I come here, I remembered one of the songs that were sung in Exodus 15. It talks about how great our God is, how terrifying he is, and how powerful he is. So probably Nehemiah remembered what happened to the Israelites back in Moses' time. They were not standing against Sanballat. They were standing against Pharaoh himself and with all his powers and all of his armies. But all of that were demolished. They were all demolished and they sank in the sea. So it says, "Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for us." Fight. So are we building or fighting? I'm confused now. What are we doing? No, he said fight. Fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes. And you want it in summary? You want the summary of the whole thing? You live your life on Facebook? Don't come back and cry that you lost your children. We hear a lot, "Oh, the kids are atheists, the kids deconverted." You fell asleep for 50 years. Wake up. Pay attention. How are you living your life? How are you wasting your life? This church that we are in, if there wasn't someone who tried with all his power, effort, and money 24 hours. If there wasn't someone who started this church 50 years ago, I wouldn't have been here. I'm here on the shoulders of others who were ahead of me, who have been working for 20, 30 years. Was it easy? Let me ask you, was it easy for you to build? Did you find it easy? Did you find it? Did you find the road wide open and welcoming? No. Did you see other people who were mocking you, who were opposing you? About a month ago, someone was trying to advise me. We don't need an Arabic church in Edmonton. He's trying to give me an advice. Well, we're living in Canada. Why would we need an Arabic church in Canada? The kids don't speak English, don't speak Arabic. What do we need? And I was thinking about it, and I was coming to the end of myself. I saw a lot of things that you guys may not see. I was full. I was so burdened, and I felt I couldn't go on. And I found that someone calling me from outside from Edmonton, and they were saying, Ibrahim, we are listening through Facebook. I'm not going to share what happened next in the phone call, but I just wanted to share that what we are doing here is being heard outside of Canada even. We want to shut it down, but there are other people out there that are listening and are working and are wanting the word of God. We should continue to work and continue the work. I have a situation and I need to take a decision. We're not here to play. We're not here to have fun. We're not here to waste our time. We are here in a war, and it needs someone who will hold the weapon from one hand and build from the other hand. For the sake, not just for your sake, but for the sake of your loved ones, your families, your children. If the wall was not was not made, the enemy would have easily corrupted the city. Where is your weapon today? I'm done. We'll pray together. But let me ask you this one question. I'm not here to waste my time or your time. I'm not here to hear positive feedback. Let's stop that. Let's stop that. I'm not here to hear compliments. Today we have to take a side. Where's your weapon? Which side are you on? What are you doing? What are you doing? Let's pray. Let's close our eyes and let's pray. Fight for, don't be afraid. Fight for the sake of your children and your siblings. The Lord is fighting for us, true, but this is not just words. But I'm not here to do nothing. I'll hold my weapon and my sword. It's the only piece of it's only a weapon to attack. Because in spiritual warfare, it says in Corinthians 10 to demolish all things raised against taking captive all thoughts raised against the knowledge of Jesus and God. You know do you know what Satan did with Adam? He said, when you eat, you become like God. Stay there. I want you to stay like this. I want you to... This is the thought that Satan puts in the mind of humans. Disobedience, rebellion, and pride, We need a helmet to put on. We need a protection on our thoughts. How do you do that? With the Word of God. Read the Word of God. Don't read and fall asleep. Read it and apply it. Read it and use it. If you hear something in the Word of God, do it. You will not be victorious. You will not conquer until the end of your life. Like what it says in Revelation. It says that they overpowered him until death. If you didn't start right and lived right, my prayer for you today, whether you are physically here or through Facebook, please, I plead with you, take a decision today. Do not live a defeated life. Do not live a distracted life, but work every day and night, because Satan doesn't stop work. Take your weapon to wherever you go. Even to a restaurant. Don't go to Mexico and take a weapon and leave your weapon behind, even if you are on your vacation. Always take your spiritual weapons with you, or else Satan will overpower you and defeat you. But we remember that God gave us all what we need to live a victorious life. The problem is in you. The problem is with you. Lord, please make your word today not be sent in without good use. Let your word enter and change us from inside. Let us wake up. Let us stay alert. Let us go back to the Word of God. Please. Don't think we are here on a picnic. We are in a war. Our enemy is not asleep. Stand. Stand firm. Stand firm in what Jesus did for you. This is our topic of victory. This is what we can use to defeat Satan with the blood of the Lamb and the Word of God. You spend your life to find it in heaven. Lord, please use this word. Amen.